We have another shocking New York Rangers trade update as a new report has revealed some wild details on the nixed trade between the Canucks and the New York Rangers, and who is included in this trade will shock Rangers fans because it is not who you think it is, and it sounds like this trade could still come to fruition. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Rangers Digest, but before we do, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 74% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you're a diehard New York Rangers fan, if you want to stay up to date with everything going on with the New York Rangers, it's free. Be sure to smash that subscribe button. Now, we got a Friedman bomb yesterday morning on the 32 Thoughts podcast where he said that there was a trade in the works over the weekend to bring JT Miller to the New York Rangers from the Vancouver Canucks. Although it sounds like, JT Miller wants to stay in Vancouver, but if he is going to waive his no trade clause or his no move clause, it is to New York. He would be fine with coming to New York. So obviously that was something that happened over the weekend. As you can see here, we went through this in a video yesterday, and obviously there was a lot of chatter and a lot of talk about who was included in the trade. And Mika was brought up earlier this season. That was nixed. And obviously there was a lot of chat this weekend, and it was brought up from a lot of different sources. Larry Brooks had it as well. He said, it was Schneider and or Lafreniere. And we were making a big deal of this over the weekend, of course, because with information like that, that is crazy. I was saying there's no way you could trade Braden Schneider for JT Miller. I don't think you should trade Braden Schneider for most players in the league. Like, there's only a handful of players I would trade Braden Schneider for at this point. And on top of it, Lafreniere, I was saying I was more open to Lafreniere, but still, that would be a puzzling trade. That would be insane. Now, we have some new reports that have some crazy details that the JT Miller to the New York Rangers trade was nixed included Filip Chytil and Ryan Lindgren. Those are the names that were included in the trade. Now, we'll get to that in a second about the trade and the logistics of it, but talks broke down because of pick conditions. That's the only reason this trade fell through at the time that it did. Now, I wonder if the Vancouver Canucks are talking to other teams. We've heard that the Devils are kind of in the mix, but obviously yesterday a few reports came out saying that that may not be true. We've heard that maybe the Dallas Stars are in the mix. So maybe the Canucks are doing their circling, right? They're circling different teams, and maybe they'll come back to the Rangers. So I do think that they're still in the mix. And again, this is from David, who transcribed this. I believe this is from Elliot Friedman. Center Filip Chytil, defenseman Ryan Lindgren, and some future focused assets, including a first-round pick, could have been involved. One source briefed on the trade talks indicated that a disagreement on the protection structure of a first-round pick was a key hurdle. So this trade, which included Ryan Lindgren and Filip Chytil, fell through because of a protection, agreement or provision in the trade, and that's why it fell through. So let's go back a second to who was included in the trade, because we were expecting the Rangers to give up a lot for JT Miller. If it was Filip Chytil, Ryan Lindgren, a first, and like a third, I would make that trade and change my phone number if I was Chris Drury. That would be insane. I was expecting to give up, one of the best young players they have on the team right now. Not even just one of them, maybe two of them. So again, if, you're going to make this trade, and the Canucks were okay with Filip Chytil, who, listen, is a great player. We know he's a great player in New York, right? He's injury prone to a degree, right? Like, he's dealt with a lot of injury troubles. He's never played, really a full season. He had a tough season and tough go last year. He's dealt with some injury stuff again this year. He's a great player when he plays, but that is something to consider. And Ryan Lindgren, same thing, right? Like, he plays most games. I'm not saying he's out of the lineup injured all the time, but he does play injured. His body's breaking down on him. He's only like 26 years old-ish, or 28, excuse me. And, it's something that the Canucks have to consider. Any team acquiring these players have to consider. So if the trade was Filip Chytil and Ryan Lindgren and maybe a first and another pick, again, like I say, I would make that trade, change my phone number, and never talk to them again if I was Chris Drury. That would be highway robbery if that's exactly what the trade was. This JFresh chart is a little bit old. This is around the time when he signed earlier this season, but you can imagine with the season that he's had, a disappointing season, it looks a little bit worse than this. So the Canucks would be acquiring this, although, he plays top pair minutes. His JFresh time on ice is a second pair defenseman, but he is playing top minutes with the Rangers and always really has with Adam Fox. So that is something that maybe the Canucks were considering, right? Maybe this is a guy who could play with Quinn Hughes or something like that, or maybe shift on their lineup. Maybe he can play with Filip Hronek. But Nonetheless, I think this is a shocking return. And for the trade to fall through on not the players coming back the other way, but the conditions on a first-round pick is shocking to me. I mean, that would have been a great trade, right? Everything we've been freaking out about over the last couple of years, or the last couple of days, I should say, that would have been a great trade this weekend. And it looks like they're not done yet. The Rangers' JT Miller swap for Filipino Ryan Lindgren fell through. And again, I thought this was an interesting thing here that this isn't the first time the New York GM Chris Drury has attempted to acquire Miller this year, as he reportedly offered Mika Zibanejad to Vancouver, and that was earlier this year. If you're the Vancouver Canucks, I know you need defense help, but Mika Zibanejad, acquiring him versus, I know it comes with a bigger cap hit, versus Filipino and Ryan Lindgren, I don't know. Maybe they need defense help. I think that they probably do because they've been dealing with some injuries this year, but very interesting. Lindgren, who turns 27, I said he was 28 earlier. He is 26. In early February, has been with the Rangers since he was a second-round pick in 2016. He has 11 points, 2 goals, 9 assists in 41 games this year, and is a -4, and he averages about 20 minutes of ice time. We can get into all their stats now. This is Ryan Lindgren, obviously, like we just went over, 11 points in 41 games this year, averaging about 20 minutes of ice time. So again, he's a guy that plays top-line minutes with the Rangers. He plays a lot with Adam Fox, so maybe that could be enticing for a team like the Vancouver Canucks, who have some injury trouble and some defense problems. Obviously, we know what Filipino brings to the table, right? Like 18 points in 37 games so far this season. He's dealt with injury troubles. He's still a young player in this league. He's playing third-line sheltered minutes most of the time. Obviously, moved up and down the lineup so far this year, and at times it depends in-game. So, again, we know what he brings to the lineup. He's one of their best centers right now, like just overall game, I guess. Defense and offensively, a good 200-foot player. But, again, dealing with some injuries, and so you would trade these two and a first-round pick, which honestly I think I'm fine with, for JT Miller, who has 31 points in 35 games so far this year. We know he's a dog. I mean, this is a guy who can help you win in the playoffs. This is a guy who can get you into the playoffs. Adding a guy like JT Miller, does he win you a Stanley Cup this year? I'm not too sure, but I think he makes things very interesting. I'll tell you that. And again, it will be very interesting to see if the Rangers are still in the mix here, because if that was the return, if they can figure out the conditions on a first-round pick, I do think you do that trade. I was really hesitant if it included Braden Schneider or Alexis Lafreniere, but if that is the return, if it's Hedl, because you're filling in a center spot with JT Miller coming in anyway, if it's Hedl and Lindgren, I think you make that trade, right? Because Lindgren isn't even signed past this year. You might have to move off of him anyway, depending where you are at the trade deadline. So again, when you look at JT Miller, he's 31 years old. He's about to turn 32, excuse me. He comes with an $8 million cap hit for the next 5 seasons, or I guess he's in year 2 of a 7-year deal. But, when looking at that, the Rangers, they can make this trade tomorrow, man. Like, they have a lot of cap space, and not just current cap space. They have a lot of deadline cap space. This is a team that can add almost $23 million worth of players at the trade deadline this year. So they can really go out and do something. I don't think Chris Drury is done. I think they're going to try and figure out, obviously, when these things fall through, the Canucks might circle around with other teams, see what they're offering. They might come back to the Rangers because it sounds like, things have hit a boiling point in Vancouver. They probably want to make a trade. So it's going to be very interesting. The Rangers can make this trade tomorrow with their cap situation. So we will see what happens. But if that was the trade and it's a first-round pick and they can, get the conditions on that first-round pick to whoever it is liking, I would make that trade in a heartbeat. Let me know in the comments if you would make that trade. It's a no-brainer to me. Filipino, I think he's a great young player, but if you're getting JT Miller in return and Ryan Lindgren, who isn't even signed past this year, and I'm not even sure you would sign him past this year, plus a first-round pick, that's not bad when we were considering doing it for Braden Schneider and Alexis Lafreniere, although I wasn't considering that. I was not thinking that was a great trade, but this return, this is not bad. But let me know in the comments what you think about that return, if you would do the trade. And we'll see if the Rangers circle back on it in the next couple of days. The rumblings have not stopped, and this seems like it might be the first domino of the NHL trade deadline to go. This may set the market. So let me know what you think in the comments, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.